Hi there, and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. So it is a chilly, dark, and gloomy day, and it's Monday. And so I've decided to put up my Christmas tree. Never mind the fact that we're not even midway through November. So I thought maybe you'd like to hang out with me for a little while I'm putting up the tree. I have an artificial tree. I don't know which is better for the environment, a real tree or an artificial tree. I've heard good arguments either way, but yeah, mine's an artificial tree that lives in a big plastic tote that used to live under my bed but now lives in my closet because other things live under my bed. And you can see Sassy is already interested. When I got her, it was in the fall of last year, so she was maybe 12 weeks old at Christmas time. I mean, she was still a baby, and man, did she climb up that tree. And she was hilarious. She fell out of the tree a lot. It was funny. She climbed up it. She took off all the ornaments. I didn't put any breakable ornaments on because, man, I knew better than that. But, yeah, she took all the ornaments off. She played with them. I have these ornaments that are these paper mache balls, and they are Whisker's favorites. She loves them. And I just recently found one in a closet that who knows how it got in there, but when I was taking down the tree last year, I knew I was missing a couple of them. I just didn't know where they were, and I usually blame Whiskers, but last year it might have been Sassy too. Whiskers doesn't climb the tree, at least. She's too fat for that. So usually when I put up the Christmas tree, I listen to Christmas music, but I don't think I can do that while I'm filming because I think YouTube objects to like copyrighted stuff like that. Rightly so, I understand that. And I usually make some hot chocolate maybe or something like that, but I have some hot chocolate. I think it's good hot chocolate, but I have neither marshmallows nor whipped cream to put on top, and I really like it with whipped cream on top. So instead I am making some ginger cookie flavored coffee, which will be ready shortly. Plus, it'll make it smell really good in here. So anyway, I have this artificial tree that I've had for several years, and even though the little fake needles, some of them fall off every year, it's still in reasonably good shape, I suppose. And it's lasted a long time and it's easy, so that's why I have it. And I don't know. Okay, I guess that's in there. Sassy's like, I want to see, can I climb it? Can I climb it yet? So some of you who've been following this channel for a while may be aware that I'm not actually Christian, and I also don't really celebrate Christmas because I'm not Christian. However, I like the Christmas tree, and it was pagan before it was Christian, you may be aware, and I like it. I like the ornaments, I like the lights. It's something fun that I enjoy doing every year. I mean, for me it's fun. I know some people feel like it's kind of a lot of trouble, it's a lot of work, whatever, but I enjoy it. Am I putting this? Does it go this way? I don't know. When I was a kid, we had an artificial Christmas tree that had these, oh, well, that looks like it's on backwards. One of these things on the bottom is on backwards. We had an artificial Christmas tree, and all the branches came out, and it had those, they were like color-coded. The little holes where you stuck them into the trunk were a certain color, and the same color was on the end of the branch, and that's how you knew which branch went where. And I remember putting that up when I was a kid. I remember it being really fun to put up the Christmas tree when I was a kid. And to be honest, there weren't a lot of things in my childhood that were particularly fun, but I remember that being fun. Okay, so like actually putting up the tree is pretty quick and easy, but here's the less fun and easy part. You see how all these branches are smushed because it doesn't fit in the storage box unless you smush all branches. So the less fun part is you have to like unsmush all the branches because you know, you can't have a tree that looks like this, right? And then by the time I get all these branches fixed and then get the lights on the tree, I'm usually exhausted and don't have the energy to decorate it, so that usually gets done the second day. But we'll see. Also, I might give Sassy the rest of today to play in the tree. Like maybe then it won't be a novel thing and she'll stay out of it, although I tried that last year and it didn't really work for me. But we'll see. She's already, can you see? She's already climbing it. You know, Sassy, if you knock it over when it's decorated, I'll be mad. She's like, I don't care if you're mad. This is pretty cool. At one point, I had an artificial tree that was pre-lit, so like the lights were already, they were just part of the tree and you just had to plug it in and it was all lit up, which was great until like half the lights on it died. So I'd had lights on half the tree and not on the other half of the tree, and there was no way to just fix the lights. Now, when you have like a strand of lights, those things die pretty easily. They may not last you for many years, but they're cheap, at least, you know, it's stuff that goes in the landfill, but ouch, Sassy, you got my fingers. But it's at least cheaper than replacing the whole tree and putting a whole tree in the landfill. And, I mean, I didn't want a tree that was only half lit up because that looked really stupid. So I thought about just keeping the tree and decorating it, not having lights on it. But to be honest, the lights is it's like at least half of why I like the tree. I mean, half would be the lights and half would be the ornaments. But if I had to choose just one or the other, I might choose the lights over the ornaments. Last year, that's pretty much what I had because little Miss Sassy kept taking off the ornaments. You need your toenails cut, Sassy. Here, Isaac. Whiskers has been letting me cut her toenails, which is wonderful, but I haven't tried to cut Sassy's, and she needs it. I might have to get a spray bottle of water and see if we can educate her about not climbing the tree. Now, she wants to, like, swat. You're going to end up getting locked in the bathroom while I put this up, Sassy. What's wrong with her? Oh. She's got one toe that's, the fur is just gray, and the way I was looking at it looked like something was wrong with her toe. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this with her out here because she's going to jump up and attack my hands. Although she's sure enjoying it. Ouch. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this just so I can have this video to watch. I have to go turn the heat down under my coffee because I have that percolator. You make it on the stove and you wait till it starts to, you see the coffee bubbling up in the little glass knob. So it's basically boiling, and then you just turn the heat down and let it go a little bit longer. Ah! Yeah, that went well. And Whiskers was sitting on the end of the coffee table. You couldn't see it, but that tree fell and just about smacked Whiskers in the head, and she took off flying. Yeah, you're going to have to get locked up, little sassafras. Because I can't put up a tree with you. No. Huh, maybe I could bungee cord it to the wall or the ceiling or something. Alright, I'm going to lock my cat up and let my coffee finish brewing, and I'll be back. Alright, coffee is still doing its thing, but Sassy is having some alone time in the bathroom, and I thought while I play with my Christmas tree here and try to make this look like a tree instead of a smashed thing, I would entertain you by telling you the story of the 3 wise women. So, once upon a time, like, God, this is going to make me feel old, 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I was living with this wonderful woman who grew up in a very Christian home, and she had some issues kind of related to that. But anyway, we were decorating our Christmas tree together. She wasn't really a practicing Christian when we were together, but there were like these leftover issues, like she was afraid to come out to her parents and various other things, but that is not the point of this story. So we were decorating our Christmas tree one Christmas, and she had these 3 ornaments that depicted the 3 wise men. And I made some comment without really thinking about it very much, but just said, I want 3 wise women on my tree. And she looked at me and she said, well, you can't have 3 wise women. There weren't 3 wise women there. And I was like, wait, you know, how do you know there weren't 3 wise women there? And she's like, well, that's not, you know, what it says in the Bible. Well, you know, the Bible was written by men, and they probably didn't think the 3 wise women, or maybe there were more than 3, but they probably didn't think that women were important, because men in those days, they did not think women were important. But I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, you know, the innkeeper probably had a wife or a daughter or someone, like, who did the cooking and the cleaning, not the innkeeper, right? Probably. So I thought, well, you know, so those women would have been there, and they might have been wise. And maybe there was a midwife that lived nearby, and if so, they would have sent for the midwife. And man, she would have been wise. Midwives, even today, are so wise. You know, they know how to deliver babies. Well, good grief. You know, somebody delivered this baby in a barn. I bet Mary didn't have prenatal care. They didn't have prenatal care back then. You know, I don't think she was expecting to go into labor at that time. So, you know, maybe the baby was premature, or, you know, maybe not. But, you know, all kinds of complications can happen when you give birth. They don't most of the time. About 9 out of 10 childbirths go perfectly smoothly. But complications can happen. It can be dangerous. Babies can die. Women can die. The United States actually has a very high infant mortality rate and also a high maternal mortality rate compared to other industrialized countries like all of Europe. And, you know, complications can happen. And home birth, which you may not know, is actually very safe for about 9 out of 10 women. But for those who have complications, you know, sometimes complications can be treated at home, or they can get you to the hospital in time, but sometimes they can't, and you can die. You can die if you're in the hospital as well, by the way, because most births in the United States take place in hospitals, and we still have a high infant and maternal mortality rate compared to other countries, where, by the way, they have more home births than we do here. But they also have more midwives that deliver the babies. And midwives are really experts in delivering babies. But still, this midwife would not have known Mary, would not have ever seen her before she went into labor. And if it wasn't a midwife, well, then it's even more amazing that some woman was able to help Mary out to give birth in a stable. And both Mary and the baby apparently were at least reasonably healthy. I was going to say perfectly healthy, but we don't really know that. There could have been minor complications that we don't hear about because, again, the Bible was written by men who probably wouldn't have even known if Jesus had been born breech, or if he had shown breech means the feet come out first or the butt comes out first, not the head. Normally the head comes out first. And, you know, there's shoulder dystocia, which basically means the shoulders get stuck when they go to come out. That's the widest part of the baby's body. So a lot of times the head slides right out, and then the shoulders are supposed to kind of turn sideways, and one comes out first and then the other. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes the shoulder kind of gets wedged underneath the pubic bone and doesn't want to come out. And there are little tricks that you can do if you know what you're doing to help the shoulders come out. But anyway, there are all kinds of problems. You can have excessive bleeding after childbirth. Maybe the whole placenta or afterbirth doesn't all come out. A doctor or midwife knows you're supposed to examine the placenta, and you look at the edges to see if there are any like ragged edges. They should all be really smooth, and there shouldn't be any blood vessels that look like they go to the edge and then it got torn off, because that probably means there's pieces of the placenta that got torn off and left behind. And you can have problems with bleeding if that happens, because the uterus can't clamp down all the way on itself to stop the bleeding if there's something still in there. But also, you can develop an infection. And so if part of the placenta gets left behind, you have to get it out. And if you have excessive bleeding, you have to do something to stop the bleeding so you don't bleed to death, because women can bleed to death. So anyway, there are all these things that can happen, right? And we don't know if Mary and Jesus experienced any of these problems or not. Again, 9 out of 10 women don't have these problems. But 1 out of 10 could have some kind of a problem, which, may or may not be able to be dealt with easily outside the hospital. And back then, nobody went to the hospital to have a baby. So if you were somewhere where there wasn't someone who knew how to deal with those problems, you just died. So anyway, there might have been a midwife there. And if there was, she was probably good at her job, for sure. Because if a lot of your mothers and babies died, you wouldn't keep being the midwife. The people wouldn't have it. But even if there wasn't a midwife, other women probably knew what to do, because once they got old enough to get married, they would be helping other women, sisters, maybe their own mothers, because people had more children back then if they lived that long. So maybe you were an adult or old enough to get married, which wasn't always an adult back then. And you might be helping your own mother give birth to one of your siblings. You might be helping your sister give birth, or a sister-in-law, or the neighbor down the street. You would have attended births of other women. The men did not attend the births, and if you didn't know that, in the U.S. until sometime in the 70s, it was very common that men sat in the waiting room, usually smoking, because they let you smoke in hospital waiting rooms back then. So the men would sit in the hospital waiting room smoking while their wives gave birth, with nurses there to help them during most of the labor, and a doctor, most often a male, who came in at the last minute. So this may seem like I'm digressing a lot, but the point is, somebody was there to help Mary deliver that baby, and it wasn't Joseph, and whoever it was must have been wise. Maybe it was a midwife, maybe it was a daughter or a wife of the innkeeper, maybe it was just some woman who cooked at the inn, maybe it was women from the surrounding town. There's a good chance there were also some prostitutes that plied their trade at the inn. And, they certainly could have been wise. So there were some women there, and there's a good chance that at least some of those women were wise. Isaac says he needs another treat. All right. So I explained all this after I thought it over to my friend who had grown up with the very Christian beliefs, and she got very upset. I think she really didn't like it when I suggested that there might have been some prostitutes attending the birth. But look, you only knew so much about birth control back then. If you were a prostitute, you might have given birth. And you'd attended births because all the women had. And the wise men weren't there when the baby was being born. They showed up later with presents. But Mary didn't give birth by herself in that barn, and Joseph wasn't there. He was in the inn drinking ale or whatever they drank back then. Mead, something. He was in the inn, probably getting drunk and hanging out with the other men while Mary gave birth. And he came in later after Mary and the baby were all cleaned up, and whatever, like, stressful things happened, whatever complications happened, as long as Mary was doing okay by the time he got back to the barn, he might have never known about them, if there were any. Because you didn't talk to men, even your husband, really, about things like that back then. Birth was for the women, not for the men. So that is the story of the 3 wise women. And now I'm going to go get my coffee and see what I can get done on this tree. And maybe I'll show you when I get it done, or maybe I'll film some more and I'm putting ornaments on. I'll definitely let you see Sassy when she's climbing on it later. Until then, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Let me know when you put your Christmas tree up. A couple friends told me it's way too early, but I felt like it needed to be early this year. We need something bright and cheery, right? All right, so everybody have a great day.